So I'm going to begin here. We're going to break this down into what is AI, what is microcontent, and why the heck it matters to all of you. Quick question, how many folks have used AI today? Show of hands. Okay, what AI have you used? Google Maps. What's that? Alexa. Anyone else? Watson, all right? So what is AI? If you look it up in the dictionary, you get two definitions, a branch of computer science. You also have the capability of a machine to imitate intelligent human behavior. Now, the truth is, if you really dig in, there are multiple definitions of AI. One is weak AI. In 1997, IBM's Deep Blue beat Garry Kasparov in chess. Chess is a game that has limited moves for certain pieces on the board, so a bishop can't go straight or sideways, only diagonally, a rook the opposite of that. So it's weak AI because that's all it knows, but it beat a grandmaster of chess. Now, fast forward, about 20 years later, something happened that folks didn't think was going to happen for a long time, and that was that AI, in the form of Google's AlphaGo, beat Lee Sedol, who was the Go world champion. A much more complex game that people truly thought machines could not learn and play as well as humans for probably another decade or more, and yet it did it over 2 years ago. Here I would call this narrow AI because it's still playing a game. That's all it was designed to do. However, the complexity of the game requires a great deal more processing and thought. Well, then you get to general AI, right? This is kind of the holy grail. This is the sci-fi. This is the machine thinks like a human. It can emote. It can be comic relief like C-3PO. And then you can get into the more dystopian types of strong AI like in Alien Covenant, which I liked, but apparently nobody else on the internet did. And you get into Michael and Walter and these cybernetic characters, synthetic characters who don't only emulate the intelligence of human beings, they go further. They can outthink a human being. They are adding intelligence. What we're going to talk about, though, today is really more what is called in-between AI or intermediate AI. Best represented by 2011 when Watson beat Ken Jennings and other champions at Jeopardy. Because if you think of what was accomplished there, it's rather interesting. You might immediately think, oh, this is weak AI, this is narrow AI, it's a game. But in addition to the intelligence to know the answers to all of this trivia across all of those different categories, you also had to know some game theory, you had to know some betting strategy, you had to formulate your answers in the form of a question, there's a certain rapport with the host. So it's using strong and weak, narrow and broad for a result. Now, as you saw in my question at the beginning, we're actually living in between AI right now. Gallup estimates that 85% of US folks use AI on a regular basis in the form of the types of intelligence services you heard today. Google Maps, Uber, Watson, Alexa, Siri, the list goes on. And in fact, all you have to think about is, what does Google do as soon as you type a search query? It tells you other searches that are being run or things that are relevant to what you had previously been searching. Heck, 2009, Yelp came out with Monocle, where you could hold it up in the real world and you could see Yelp information in augmented reality. That's 2009. Then, of course, you've got Google Maps, as was mentioned. This is Google Maps in Newark, New Jersey. And when I pull it up now, it's interesting because there are 3 locations that I've been to in the last 3 months that show up in a highlighted fashion, even though I didn't search for those. Because Google knows. It's applying intelligence and knowledge to give me a better experience. Waze, how many folks use Waze? All right, there's our commuters in the audience. Crowdsourcing knowledge. But if you search for Waze intelligence, you see a litany of articles about partnerships and acquisitions that they are making to get from perhaps weaker in-between AI to stronger in-between AI, so that maybe they can anticipate the needs of the drivers, not just report and reroute you around. Siri, of course, comes out, 2011, it's been that long, helping us, instead of giving us blue links, giving us an answer, and having us to confront that as content marketers. What does it mean when you don't have 10 blue links to optimize and instead there's an answer? How do we get there? Of course, Amazon makes that even more complex with Amazon Alexa, principally in its initial phases used for e-commerce purchasing, but as it spreads across all of their devices, the Echo Dot, the Show, the Look, now it's going into smart homes. They're beginning to partner with auto manufacturers. It's having to get more and more intelligent to answer more and more questions. Google Assistant comes out 2 years ago, and now Google uses all of its ecosystem and what it knows about you, your calendar, your schedule, your behaviors, to try and answer questions for you in a much more powerful way. Cortana from Microsoft comes out the same year, and a lot of people forget that its install base is pretty formidable because it's in the latest Windows devices, it's in Xbox, and like all of the voice assistants now, you can have the app on your phone whether or not you're in an iOS or an Android world. So on my phone, I've got Siri, I've got Cortana, I've got Google Assistant, I have Alexa. They're all right there. Then, in the last year, it gets even more interesting because Google begins to introduce visual search, where the search engine, the UI, is not me typing in anything, me vocally saying anything. It's my camera. I hold it up in the real world, and it goes a step further than that monocle we saw from Yelp 10 years prior, because it's actually looking at the photo to tell you what the information is. And this one, if you're in an Apple environment, you can install Google Photos now, and you can use Google Lens to say, that is a malachite butterfly. Or I can take a picture of my MacBook Air as I'm looking at Lidl, which is a grocery store in Germany, and it knows that is a MacBook Air, and that is Lidl, a grocery store in Germany. Or when I go to see Harry Potter and the Cursed Child this last weekend with my family and take a picture and I scan it, now it has links to the books, the movies, the play, the venue, and you can scroll on and on as it gives you information. So, looking at all of this, AI is not one thing. That's very important for us to recognize as marketers, content marketers, as just folks who use AI. Because when folks are talking about it, you have to narrow it down to what type of AI are you speaking about. So if you are interested in AI to optimize the performance of your marketing efforts, go see Christopher Penn tomorrow. He's got a session on that. He did a workshop on it yesterday. He is brilliant and knows all of those tools. I'm going to talk about AI in a little bit of a different way. And it is how it leverages knowledge, content. So always think about that. AI has to leverage content and context in order to create better outcomes. So that's our AI portion of the show. What do I mean by microcontent? Well, if you look it up on Wikipedia, you find out there are 2 different definitions of microcontent. How many folks know who Jacob Nielsen is? All right, those are my veterans in the web wars. If you came of age in internet marketing in the 90s, you know Jacob Nielsen because he was the guy, the godfather of user design and user experience. When Web 1.0 was happening, he was the person who was explaining to designers and content creators why your websites needed to be user-friendly. And he coined the term microcontent to mean quickly scannable content on a web page or an app. So I can quickly look at it, assess the content, dig in further if I'm interested. That is not the microcontent I'm talking about. Now, here's the ruggedly handsome Mark Schaefer posing by a train track. I do not have a headshot by a train track, but after seeing this photo, I feel the necessity to get one. Mark, along with a number of other folks, coined the term microcontent, second definition, in the late 2000s, early 2010s, to refer to short-form social media type content that allows for bursts of information and often links back to more in-depth content that will engage your readers. So, with the evolution of Twitter and its original 140 characters, microcontent. A Facebook post, microcontent. An Instagram post, microcontent. A pin and a photo on Pinterest, microcontent. Second definition of microcontent. That's not what I'm talking about. I am talking about a third definition of microcontent for this era of internet usage and connectivity. I am talking about the microest of microcontent, facts. And facts have not gone out of style, believe it or not. To every one of your brands, they are very relevant. And what are they? They are just simply itsy-bitsy, teeny-weeny little pieces of information that are highly relevant to consumers in moments that matter. And for those folks who raised their hands on AI, I bet each one of you was seeking a piece of information. You weren't seeking a social post. You weren't seeking a web page. You were seeking information. That is what this third era of microcontent is about. So think of it as old schoolhouse rock. It's a noun. It's a person, a place, a thing, or the adjectives that describe them. It literally is the building blocks of much of the content that we have all created as content marketers. So let me give you an example. This is the television that I covet most in the world. I am a proud owner of an LG OLED TV already. I can't recommend it enough. I am not paid to endorse them, but I love the picture quality. It is fabulous, but this one adds Google Assistant into it so that now you can interact and that television becomes a way to provide visuals with that voice assistant, and I'm really intrigued by it. I pulled this up on Amazon, and you'll notice there are technical details. And those technical details are things like, what is the brand name? What is the weight? What are the product dimensions? What's the item number? Those are pieces of microcontent. Now what's interesting is LG didn't go to an Amazon interface and input this information. No, what they did was they used a product information management system. How many folks are in e-commerce and use a PIM? Okay, a couple. So this was a problem that was solved for about 20 years ago when product information systems, PIMs, came about. Because e-commerce companies that were producing products, they were making things to sell, all of a sudden, in the era of the internet, had multiple distribution points. They exponentially increased, and one of them, big ones, was Amazon. And now you have these product managers with a challenge on their hands. How do I get this information, these facts, consistently into every point of sale out there, digital and otherwise? That's what a PIM did. It allowed you to distribute that information so that now, if I search for that item number on Google, I get consistent information, but I also get all the prices from all the people who are selling it. The PIM solved the problem of scale with facts. It did it just in that e-commerce application. It continues to thrive today because it saves time and it distributes facts at scale. Well, here's the funny thing. We as businesses have an awful lot of facts that we would like to be the source of truth for, right? Our location, our hours of operation. If we're in healthcare, we want the information about doctors and practitioners to be right. We want the days of the week they practice where and when to be right. We want what they practice to be right, what insurance they accept to be right. If we are a company, a restaurant, we want our menu items to be correct, the caloric information, the allergens, all of this information. If we produce events, we want event information to be right and distributed. So what has happened in this era of AI and in-between intelligence is an explosion of needing this information to be managed at scale, just like the product information. Now, along comes schema.org a few years ago. Google, Microsoft, Yahoo, Yandex band together, and they say, you know what, there's a lot of different schema that is coming up. We need to consolidate this and create a consistent methodology of schema that we can put behind these little facts so that our machines understand what they are. So if I say Harry Potter, you know, do I mean the movie? Do I mean a book? Do I mean the play? Do I mean the character? Do I mean the actor? Behind it, schema allows for that connectivity and for machines to understand, oh, you meant Harry Potter of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, the play that is on Broadway. So if you're an SEO, you understand this world. You have been making pages and all of that content schema.org compliant because you want Google's spiders to ingest it in the proper fashion. Well, this has become more important than just search. It's broader and it's discovery in general. And so micro-content, aka digital knowledge, is all of those public structured facts that your business wants to be in control of because they're about you. Now, as a content marketer, this should matter a lot to you because as we saw, people are looking and asking for these facts every single day. They're actually probably the most important pieces of content you produce on a regular basis, but we forget about them. We aren't paying attention to them. We think it's being done by the SEO team. We think it's being done by the services themselves. However, it's not. Because what has happened is a proliferation of these intelligent services to such a degree that you cannot simply manage them at scale through manual submission. It's the exact same problem that the PIM solution solved for in e-commerce. So when you have all of these touch points, don't you as a brand want your information to be correct? Don't you want your content to be consistent across all of the services? And the answer is yes. And so Jay Baer and I wrote this ebook probably about 18 months ago. And one of the key stats that we cited in it was that 73% of high intent brand interactions are now happening off your website and app. Meaning those intelligent services I just put up there, that's where the majority of the interaction is happening with your brand. That's not to say the website isn't important or your app isn't important. It's just there's an entire universe of interactivity that's happening. And you as content marketers who are passionate about how your customers, your potential customers interact with that content have a great stake in this and can be amazing advocates for this.